Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. I'm Linda Cohn with the League of Women Voters. Election season continues for voters in Texas House of Representatives District 145. And tonight we're going to chat with some of the candidates eager to represent that district in the Texas House of Representatives. It all began on Election Day in November 2018 when Texas State Senator Sylvia Garcia won election to the United States House of Representatives. She resigned from her state Senate seat to take up her duties in Washington, and a special election was held in December 2018 to fill the newly vacant state Senate seat. That special election was won by Carol Alvarado, who happened to be serving as the representative for Texas State House District 145. Newly elected Senator Carol Alvarado has taken up her duties in Austin as a senator, and that in turn created a vacancy in Texas House District 145. And this is the vacancy that's going to be filled by a special election on Tuesday, January 29th. Early voting is in progress right now and will continue at 5 early voting locations through Friday, January 25th. In order to vote in this election, you have to be registered to vote within the borders of House District 145. And if you're not sure if you're eligible to vote, please visit www.harrisvotes.com. Enter your name or your address, and you'll be on your way. Here are the basics. Texas state representatives serve for a 2-year term, and there are 150 representatives. Representatives develop legislation, including budget legislation, and bills for raising money must originate in the House. Also, only the Texas House of Representatives can impeach a statewide official. All 8 ballot candidates for this position were invited to appear this evening. 4 have accepted that invitation and will divide our hour equally among those 4. We'll talk with each candidate individually, separately, so that we can have a friendly chat and District 145 voters can really get to know the folks who want to represent them in Austin. With me this evening is my colleague, Jean Preuss.
Hi.
Who's going to help us ask questions. First, with us, candidate Melissa Noriega. Welcome.
Thank
you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you want District 145 voters to know?
Well, after an opportunity to get a bachelor's degree and a master's from the University of Houston across the freeway from this district, I went to work for the Houston Independent School District, worked for the Research and Evaluation Department, several of the superintendents. I was in community engagement. But in 2005, I had the opportunity to stand in for a state representative in this same district. I served 1 regular and 2 special sessions. My mother stayed with my 7-year-old while I went to Austin during most of the week, and I had the chance to actually pass some bills. It was a remarkable experience. I came back to Houston afterward and thought about where I might be able to put some of that experience to work, and ran for city council at large. So I won that in a special election and then a runoff, and then I had to run that same year again in November. But I served 3 terms, which was the term limit at the time, as an at-large city council person. I was position 5, which is the whole city, but I was always very aware of this end of town and this district, and it was important to me.
Let me ask you, what calls you to public service?
You know, that's a really good question. It's very, very satisfying to figure out answers to difficult questions or people people's struggles, or, when folks come and they bring you a piece and you put the dots together and figure out an intervention that makes a difference in an area, a neighborhood, a community, a school, whatever. The opportunity to move the ball down the field for folks that need someone to give them a little bit of a lift is really very satisfying.
Coming from a background in education as you do, was there a teacher in your life maybe that pushed you a little bit in this public service direction, someone who...
That's interesting. I graduated from Scarborough Elementary in Northwest Houston, and it wasn't really a teacher, it was the class. Everybody that I went to school with was a working class student, and they worked really hard to get scholarships, to get ahead, and really encourage each other. We were a collaborative and warm bunch, and I found that atmosphere really pushed all of us forward. Even now we go back to reunions. And
strong sense of community there.
Yes.
Jane, would you like to ask a policy question?
Since you have a background in education, I'd really like to hear what you think about Governor Abbott, who said that education funding is going to be a big priority, or should be a big priority. As you know, HISD is now in the Robin Hood plan, where the wealthy side, where they're taking from HISD. Fort Bend is going to be in the same predicament, SBISD and others. So in this milieu, how is your district? What would you suggest?
There actually are two plans on the table, and I'm not going to talk about that first. I may come back to it if we have time. The idea that HISD, with 70% of the students at poverty, or even, we're talking really free and reduced lunch, the idea that they're giving money away, making us hand off huge chunks of funding to some other school district is really not, I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's a bad public policy decision, and it was a way to work around property tax reform and a lot of different pieces. Even now, the two plans that are on the table, the Senate has a $5,000 raise per teacher. The House is insisting on property tax reform as part of this. Both of them are talking about infusing some money, but the idea that this is about tax reform is always an interesting question to me, because I don't think they fund the schools enough. My son's godfather is a principal, and his school is a special middle school that feeds to the health professions high school. They cut his budget by 2/3. You can't do that. And you can't be excellent, and you can't take children that have special needs, English language intervention needed, special ed, all those things, and continue to starve those schools and get an outcome that's positive.
How do you think it's going to affect your district, 145?
145 has some really good schools. I'm not going to tell you that the schools are awful. Eastwood Academy is terrific. There are elementary schools doing a very good job. What happens, though, is that this end of town, when I was in city council, the council district that I'm in had a 9% baccalaureate attainment rate. 9% of the students that came up through the system were getting college degrees. That's not getting it done. That's one of the lowest in the state. And I would like to see a completely different focus. I think senior year we need to do a better job of hooking kids into the next step, whether it's community college or regular college or vocational or training, that kind of thing. There are licensures and certifications, and there are career counseling opportunities, but there's also early college. A lot of our schools have the ability to combine community college courses with senior high experiences, and that puts a child back at graduation with some college credits they didn't have to spend money on. I think those kind of opportunities are really important and need to be explored.
When you have a conversation with the League of Women Voters, you're very likely to get a question about the election process. So I'm going to ask a question about that now. In Texas, at present, Mail-in ballots, paper ballots, are available, but only under certain circumstances. Would you like to tweak the Texas election code so that mail-in ballots would be available to a more expansive group of people, or perhaps to every voter?
I think that anything that would increase voting is a good idea. I think people are used to having instant things happen on their phone, and the fact that we can't register online, and that it's so important to be at the right place at the right time and not make the wrong decision about whether you're going to your early vote location or wherever. I think those things are confusing to people, and they aren't the direction that people are used to. I think that mail-in ballots have a lot of value for a lot of people, and I think they should be more available.
Available to everyone without a reason?
I don't know about that, but I think that there are times. I know my son has been away at college, and he filed an application, had a very hard time getting it, and I actually flew him home because he got it one time, and then there was a runoff, and he didn't get it, and he called me and said, "Can I fly home and vote?" And I said yes, but that didn't work right for him. He was away at school, and I think the mail ballot process needs to be streamlined, and college students are supposed to be allowed to have them, but it doesn't seem to work exactly right.
What about Texas photo voter ID? Do you think we're in a good place with that?
You know,
This is something that would be a responsibility of the legislature.
it has been. They actually voted
Yes.
on one of those when I was in the legislature in 2005. There are a number of counties in Texas that don't even have a DPS office. You have to drive miles and miles to get to one to fill it out. There's a penalty if you're a senior and you don't have transportation and can't get to a DPS office. There are lots of problems with having ID laws. Again, you would think that having an identification process, seems like a normal thing, but you're thinking about folks that are in their middle years, particularly seniors. It's a serious problem, and lots of West Texas they can't get there. We have older seniors in some neighborhoods, even here in Houston, that retired women that don't have a driver's license and never did, and it's set up for drivers, and it really isn't always the most efficient way to do things.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question about voting. What about online voter registration?
I would think that would be a good thing. I don't have a sense of exactly how you would verify IDs or the original paperwork. I think it might be really a positive intervention to allow you to renew or to re-up with that. But I think having people when they get their driver's license and or have other kinds of things and they opt out rather than opt in, we make it hard to register. We shouldn't do that.
In our remaining minute, what do you want your District 145 constituents to know about you in one word or two?
I love the East End of Houston. I would welcome the opportunity to serve that area again. You trusted me once. I would ask you to trust me again, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Candidate Noriega, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to take a very brief break and be back with another candidate. Welcome back to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. Tonight we're speaking with candidates for the special election for Texas House District 145. I'm Linda Cohn with the League of Women Voters. With me this evening, my colleague Jean Preuss. And now we're going to chat with our second candidate for this district, Oscar Del Toro. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening to you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Mr. Del Toro. What do you want your constituents to know?
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate it. I feel very honored to be with you and share my point of view. First, I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in Mexico. I have the opportunity, I call it blessing, to come to the United States, me, wife, and 3 kids. 2000, Labor Day. I still remember that day. I still remember the exact moment. And for me, it was a dream come true. I came to the United States, and I love this country. And what I love is the freedom. What I love is the opportunity. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I want to do my best to keep it in the way. And if I can improve it in any way, that will be perfect for me. I'm a business owner. Me and my wife is my biggest supporter, my big friend. We have a small business. We raised our 3 kids. It was difficult for them because they don't speak English. But I encourage them. Be yourself. Do your best. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make a mistake. Make a smile and keep doing. And that's what I'm trying to do with me and with my community. I like this community. I've been working in Pasadena to improve the best I can do to them. And I want to do this in the 145.
Give me your assessment of District 145. What do you think the landscape is like? The educational landscape, the economic landscape? What do you see when you look at District 145? A thriving area, an area with pockets for improvement? Tell us what you think.
I see a big opportunity, a big chance, a big opportunity to everyone to fulfill a dream. Whatever they have a dream, whatever their dream is, but we have to give the opportunity. And for me, to give that opportunity is give the example. I lead by example. I'm a leader, so I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I didn't before. So what I see is there is a lot of potential. We need to reach that potential and make that potential explode so the whole community will benefit. I think education, but I see education in different ways. I see education in a formal way, but I also see education in an emotional way. When you are part of the community, when you feel part of the community, when you feel good about yourself, you may start doing better things. Education is not just go to school. It is. But don't get me wrong. What I see is when I talking as a father, when I encourage my kids to be the best, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think that's also what we need to do in the community. Be a leader, be an example so they can follow through.
Thank you. June, do you have a policy question?
I do. So, well, first of all, let me start off with this question. Why do you want to run for the House? What made you've been a successful businessman for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Why go into politics?
I like it. I discovered this. I tried in Mexico in a very small, but for me in Mexico, it was a different scenario. I see in the United States, you have the opportunity. Everyone has the opportunity to run. And everyone has the opportunity to belong to the party whatever they want and do whatever they want. So for me, I always I feel good about helping people. I feel good, that's my reward. So when I came to the United States also, I noticed there is no leadership. And I said, I can do that because this is my talent. That's my talent. I know I'm going to put a lot of time and resource, but I'm not afraid. If I have something, I want to share with everyone.
So what do you think are the major issues that you would like to bring to the House if you win the election? We know the governor's been talking about education and how education funding needs to be fixed. What do you think in addition to that, are the major issues facing 145?
Addition to education, well, I've been studying how the districts are formed, how the districts are drawn, and I think we have a very dysfunctional way to draw the district. We need to make those districts fair, not just for the Democrats, not just for the Republicans, for everyone. The District 145 is not fair for everyone because 70% of the people is Democrats. So for the Republicans, there is no chance. But I don't think it's fair for everyone, not for the Republicans, not for the Democrats, and especially not for the people who vote in that district. I will try to make awareness that we need to do a different way to draw the districts. If we change the district, just changing the district and put in the consideration how many people vote Democrat or Republican, just changing the district, we can have 3 more Congress. In the Democrat side, we can have 2 state senators in the Democrat side, and maybe 1 or 2 state reps in the Democrat side, just to change the districts. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, I'm not saying it's going to be fast, but I'm saying I'm going to put that in the table so we can talk about that.
But ask about the Texas election code. Do you like the idea of online voter registration? The legislature would have to make that possible. Would you vote for it? Would you promote
absolutely.
That? You like online?
Yeah. If you can pay your taxes online, you can ask for whatever online. I encourage people to go and register. I encourage them to be, I will be facilitate every way possible for them to register. But also I will encourage them, and if they can do it by mail, they can do it by email, I will encourage everyone.
Oh, by email. Now that's an interesting prospect. So you would advocate for the expansion of mail ballots?
Yeah.
And voting by email?
Yeah, well, we have the technology, we have the resources, we can use the resources. This is about freedom. It's about choose. You have the options, so we put the options in the table and people will choose whatever they want.
Gene, do you have another policy question to ask?
Well, whenever you were talking about that, it brought up another issue that I was thinking about. Sure. What can we do to get more people to the ballot box? We spend a lot of time registering people, but come election day, come election period, not that many turn out in a lot of places. So what can we do to encourage people to vote more often?
That's an excellent question. I've been thinking about it for years. And when I was running in Pasadena, the way I talk to people was different. I don't say you need to go and vote because this is an order. People don't react very well to orders. What I say is, for me, when I came to the United States, you have your credit score. If you do correctly, they give you a high score. And I explain people say, you have a political score. People know how many votes, how many times you be in election. So one way to improve your political score and also your sector, your colonia or your precinct is going voting. So don't worry about the outcome because you cannot control the outcome. But worry about you feel good about yourself, that's one thing. When I vote the first time in the United States, I feel very good about myself. I feel connected with my community. So it's not about the outcome because you cannot control the outcome. It's about you feeling good about yourself. It's about you express your opinion. So I talk to them, if you want to vote for me, perfect. But if you don't want to vote for me, also perfect. But just this is for you. This is not for me or for the government. This is for you. That's the way I talk to them. I'm not saying it's right or good. I'm saying that's make more contact with them. I don't know.
When you completed your voter's guide questionnaire for us, you expressed the idea that the Harris County Jail is the largest provider of mental health services in Harris County, and you were not pleased with that situation.
No.
Tell me what you would do to make mental health services more readily available in a better environment.
Yeah, well, as I say with my kids and my wife, we need to put the issue on the table. I don't have all the ideas, but if we need to put the issue on the table, we cannot keep our eyes closed. That's the issue we need to address sooner or later. And as a powerful country, a very powerful country, we need to send the right message. Those people have issues, mental issues. Put it in the jail won't help anyone. I don't think will help. I mean, I can talk about my own experience with my mother-in-law. We always believed she was weird or whatever, but she was mental issues, and we never addressed those issues. So I think we need to talk about that and be honest.
What is the role of government in addressing those issues?
I don't know. But
you want to talk about it.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Talked about
And when you put the issue on the table, it's amazing how many ideas from different perspectives, from different people you can get it. I'm not claiming I'm going to have all the ideas because I will tell you a lie. I'm claiming I'm going to put the issue on the table so we can discuss. And you never know. You never know. People already have that idea.
Gene, do you have another question?
So this is you bring up a very good point. So how are you going to make yourself open to the public? You talk about the diversity in the district. How would you make yourself available to get those ideas from your constituents?
Well, there is several ways. One is you can send letters to them and say, I'm going to have this forum, I'm going to have these ideas, I'm going to have this party, so you bring your ideas and I'm more than happy to hear you. What I have is, I like to hear people and I want to understand what they want. Sometimes if you give the opportunity and you don't judge them and you just ask them, it's amazing how many ideas you may get. You can reach them by email, you can reach by word command, you can reach through forums on the Facebook. There is a different options. But the most important thing is when they feel that you are open to hear, they are very willingly to talk.
Thank you for joining us this evening, candidate Oscar Del Toro.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you.
It was a pleasure to me with you. Thank you.
We're going to take a brief break. When we're back, we'll speak with another candidate for Texas House District 145.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. This evening we are chatting with candidates for Texas House District 145. Special election is in progress. With me this evening, my colleague Sonia Torres with Mi Familia Vota's Emerging Leaders Program, and she's a student at Rice University. She's going to help us ask questions of Elias de la Garza, candidate. Yes?
Good evening.
Good evening. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What calls you to public service?
I'm a product of the East End. I grew up here. I've always lived here. I never moved away. Raised my family here. And I'm now in a position where I can serve my community because I know the issues. On a daily basis, I talk to people. They call me. They ask me, how can they get things done at City Hall, at the state, sometimes at the federal level? It's not my business to do that, but I know so many people. I want to serve them, and that's what I'm able to do now.
In your career, you are an accountant.
That is correct.
How does that translate to public service in Austin?
Well, as an accountant, I've been able to build businesses, have employees, serve the people, And I know that by going to Austin and taking my skills as an accountant, I'm able to see and find where the money is, where we can reconfigure the budget, where I can talk to the different people on the committee, where I can go and talk to the people on the floor of the legislature so that we can work out a reasonable plan so that everyone is served in the state of Texas and especially in the District 145 that I want to represent.
Would this be your first elective office?
Yes, it would be. So I'm not a politician, I'm a business owner, I'm a businessman, I'm a family man, and I want to be able to serve my community.
How do you see District 145 when you look at your map and you travel through the district on your campaign stops? What do you see?
I see a lot of poverty. I see a lot of need in the community. There's sections, especially toward the northern part, that are very prosperous. But as you go further south, you start seeing the need. A lot of times it's just basic necessities. Some people just want to know where they can get health care issues resolved. Other people want to know where they can get trained for a decent paying job. We're tired of having those minimum wage jobs in the community. We need higher paying jobs. And we know that a lot of the students that are going through school right now, they do not want to go to college for whatever reason. Maybe they come from a one-parent household. They need to get to work so they can help the family.
Sonia, do you have a policy question?
Sure. So it's great to have an accountant in front of me so I can ask questions about public education financing. So with your background, how do you think the House particularly should focus on restructuring the way that funds have been allocated previously, and how do you think that would better benefit your district?
Well, first and foremost, we have to go back to the 80s when they did the Robin Hood Act. You take money from the rich and you give it to the poor. That's been going on for years. Well, I think that has come back to bite us here in Houston because we're taking a lot of the funds that should be going to the teachers. That's really where we need to start. If we can pay our teachers better, those are the people that touch our students on a daily basis. And those are the people that are at the forefront of the education. If we can restructure that somehow to pay them better because they are the first line of defense.
Would you hope for assignment to the Education Committee if you win?
I'm going to be realistic. I'm going to be going in 60 to 65 days after the session has started. All the choice committees have been taken up. I'm just fortunate to get a committee once I get there.
Sonia, another question, please.
Sure. You mentioned that you're a businessman, and you mentioned that you've seen a lot of need in East End. I, as a student at Rice University, have studied workforce development policy. So I wonder what types of policies do you think could be instituted at the state level that would benefit impoverished areas through particularly workforce development policies?
Well, first thing that we could do is we could educate the students as they're probably at the middle school level. Mm-hmm. Ask them, are you thinking you want to go to college or do you wish to go to the workforce? If they say we want to go to the workforce, well then we need to start educating them and telling them what are the opportunities out there. There's good paying jobs, but they need training. Not everyone is made to go to college. I understand that. It's a 4-year commitment, a lot of money, a lot of resources are expended. During that time, you need to support yourself. So some of those students want to hit the ground running when they graduated, but they need to get some type of training, preferably in the high school level, so they can start working soon thereafter the graduation.
I'm going to ask about the Texas Election Code. Do you like the idea of online voter registration?
That's a good one. I like the way you register now. Now, it's not the best, but it is the most prudent way of registering for voting right now.
What about the idea of being able to expand the use of paper ballots, what we used to call absentee ballots, mail-in ballots? Right now, there's some very specific categories of voters who are eligible to have mail ballots. Would you expand that?
I would expand that because it gives more people the opportunity to vote. And that is what we're trying to push. Though we live in a district of approximately 150 to 180,000 people, approximately 50,000 are registered, and in this election, maybe we're going to get 3,000 votes.
What would you have for the criteria for a mail-in ballot? Right now, you have to be over 65, sick or disabled, away from the county, or incarcerated without the right to vote removed. What would you add? What categories would you add?
Well, that was definitely something we need to sit down and study. We have to make sure that there's not going to be any fraud pertaining to that. So it's more than just giving you an answer right now. It's something
Okay.
that we have to sit down and study deeply what we can allow.
Sonia, another question from you, please.
Sure. So specific to election codes, a lot of my volunteer work with Mi Familia Vota, which is a nonprofit organization with youth engagement, details specifically targeting and increasing civic participation amongst youth. So how, as an elected official, do you hope to increase voting participation specifically amongst youth, which means ages 18 through 24?
Well, definitely you have to start at a younger age, before 18, before they're able to vote. I would institute, or I would submit a bill in Austin where we would somehow start engaging the potential voters, maybe at the middle school level, and educate them that it's our right to be able to go and vote, and we need to vote because that gives us our power.
Civic engagement as a requirement
We have
within
to do
the schools.
We have to do something to get.
It's been proposed from time to time, so it's not so wild a dream, but
It's a dream, but we've dreamed and we've gone to the moon.
what would you like to see the state legislature tackle? What thorny issue would you like to see it tackle?
Well, we already know that we need to tackle school funding. The second one is going to be property tax reform.
Tell us more about your opinions on property tax reform. The two issues really are closely entwined, are they not?
They are. It seems like every year here in the city of Houston, any property owner is having to pay more taxes because either their appraisal goes up, and that's really where they're increasing the amount of taxes that you're having to pay. There is some legislation out there that says that it's not supposed to go up more than 10%, but it just seems like they're going beyond the 10% cap.
Tell me about the rainy day fund.
Well, the rainy day
What would you do to release those funds?
In order for us to release the funds, we definitely have to talk to the rest of the legislators. We have to see what is needed. It's not one issue. There's many issues that could use the rainy day fund, but there's a purpose for the rainy day fund. It's there for those emergencies in order to be able to balance out the budget on a rainy day.
What do you qualify as an emergency?
Need. In this district, in this state, has a lot of need, but sometimes we cannot tackle everything at once. We need to take one thing at a time, and right now, the most important thing in my heart, which is very dear, is making sure our children get educated. So we need to fund the schools. We have to. One way or another, we need to fund them properly.
Well, you spoke about school funding, not only applying to the academic world, but to the trade development sector as well. Community colleges?
Yes, we need to help
Are
them.
those,
The community colleges serve a great purpose because not everyone wants to go to a 4-year college. Some only want a 2-year associates. But I know a few people with the 2-year associates, they've done very, very well.
and how could the state bolster the 2-year community college system in Harris County, which is very vigorous, as you know? There are a number of community colleges that offer certificates, that offer training in the trades, as you mentioned. How could the state legislature enhance the ability of our local community colleges to do their job?
Sometimes the simple fact of allowing some of those students access to capital or a loan to be able to get an education or a grant and somehow paying it back by public service, maybe not the whole thing, but part of it. Once these children are educated and they're able to go out into the workforce, make a decent living, they're able to afford a family, a house, live the American dream like we all want to live.
Well, this is opening up a whole new route for scholarship disbursements. Is that what you anticipate? The Texas legislature making scholarship money available, making loans available? How's this going to play out?
Well, we have to find a funding source first. It's not about just giving away the money. Everything has to be balanced on the budget. And by that, we have to sit down and find where there's some waste in the budget.
My sisters are about to go to school, so I hope you find out soon.
Well, hopefully I will be elected and I will be a champion of helping the young youth of tomorrow, the leaders, to get a proper education, to earn a decent wage, to be able to afford the American dream.
Where do you think waste may reside in the present Texas budget? Where would you go looking first?
I'd have to sit down page by page and then analyze each number, and then I could come back and give you that answer. Hopefully you'll call me back in the next 90 days as an elected official, and I'll come back and tell you exactly where it's at.
Using your accountant skills, perhaps?
Yes, it's going to come in handy. And someone who has accounting skills, such as myself, can go to the legislature, figure out where the money is, talk to my colleagues on the committees that I will be assigned, and work out something that everyone can live with.
Sonia, another policy question, please, in the few minutes we have left.
Sure. I think East End particularly has a lot of, or at least climate justice is a conversation that happens here, particularly the proximity to factories, smog, etc. The prevalence of larger storms like Harvey makes it an ever-pressing issue. How would you try to address this at the House level? Particularly, how do you hope to address climate justice in a way that helps the most impoverished in your district?
Well, first and foremost, we know that some of those chemical plants do provide very high-paying jobs. So it's not about closing them down. It's about working with them. Because a lot of the people who work at those plants, who make good wages, live in the district. So we have to work with industry because they are the basis of a lot of the jobs that feed the people who live here.
In one word, in less than a minute that we have left, in one word or two words, how would you sum up yourself as you present yourself to the voters of District 145? What do you want them to know when they see your name?
Well, first and foremost, I am a product of the East End. I went to HISD, so I know that it's a good system. I went and got an education. I opened up my business. I have bought and sold several businesses here in the East End. I've worked with several different industries, and I know how to come up with a compromise that is equal and fair to all the people here.
Elias de la Garza, candidate for Texas House District 145. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I look forward to coming back.
We will take a brief break and be back with another candidate for House District 145. Welcome back to Conversations with the Candidates on Houston Media Source TV. This evening we're chatting with candidates for Texas House District 145, a special election to be held on Tuesday, the 29th of January. With me this evening, my colleague from the League of Women Voters, Esther No. And right now we're chatting with Christina Morales.
Hi.
Good evening. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I have a long history in District 145, actually 5 generations of our family born and raised. My grandparents came here many years ago in 1931 and opened the first Hispanic-owned funeral home in Houston. It was Morales Funeral Home, and they were here to provide affordable burials for people who would otherwise have their funerals held in a garage. So later they would open the first Spanish language radio station, which was very, very powerful. People who came to the city to work and only spoke Spanish could listen to news and weather, and you know, if a hurricane was coming, they would know about it through Morales radio station. They had one son, my father, which unfortunately for me, he passed away when I was a young girl. I was 11. And my mother passed away only 4.5 years later. So as an orphan growing up in this district, I faced a lot of challenges. But luckily for me, my grandmother took me under her wing and introduced me to the funeral business. And at 23, I became the president and CEO. And I'm happy to say that 27 years later, we're about to be 90 years old.
This is the first elected office that you've stood for?
It is, it is.
What calls you to the elected office?
So people reach out to me all the time for leadership roles. I serve on very many boards. I mean, I'm on the Houston Community College Foundation Board, the HISD Foundation Board, Memorial Hermann Children's Hospital Committee, Center for Mexican American Studies. So people are always asking of me to be the leader in the community. I also serve as a planning commissioner for the city of Houston. So I'm one of the few on that commission who is not a developer, engineer, architect, but I was asked to serve in this role because I am I have a passion for my community, and I know them very well through my funeral home business. I'm talking to people at their darkest hour, and I know what their needs are. They're open to me, and so it just seemed like a natural thing to do to run for office.
Esther, do you have a policy question?
Yes, I do. Very excited to be here. Thank you. Mrs. Morales, if you could pick one House committee to be on, which committee would that be?
Wow.
And why?
It would be public education, and thank you for asking that, because
Yes.
that would be my dream committee. That is the main focus for me moving forward. I host a school supply giveaway every year, which we sponsor, we fund, and we started it 21 years ago when nobody was doing this, and we gave away about 300 packages of school supplies. And that day I realized there's a huge need in the community, and our education system is not working for the kids. 21 years later, we're giving out 2,500 packages of school supplies. We know that the teachers don't have the means to provide all these kids their school supplies, because many of them start school without school supplies. So, in addition to that, there's a great need for better medical care and insurance and Medicaid, expansion of Medicaid. And many of these families come through, and you can see that there's a need. They go for all that we in addition to providing school supplies, we're also providing like dental screenings with UT Health. We partnered with them, and free vaccinations and all sorts of things, so that we're trying to take care of the families as they come through. So education is definitely the top of my list, and public health would be very, very good too.
Okay.
Shifting gears, I'm going to ask you about the Texas Election Code.
Yes.
Presently, you cannot register to vote online. Would you like to change that?
Yes. It's really sad that a lot of people are not voting, and we need to make it more accessible. I've been checking the numbers on this election, obviously, and they're very low, and I think people don't know there's a special election, and I'm knocking on doors every day, and I'm kind of informing them, and that's kind of the last way people should find out, by me knocking on a door. So we need to be better, and everybody has a cell phone and getting text messages or emails, and so definitely moving to online and registering online. I think Texas is a little behind the times on that one.
What about voting electronically? Do you see a day when we'll be voting by email?
I think so. I think that would be nice. There is, it is fun to go to the polls and cast your vote, but definitely making that accessible online would make it easier for a lot of people. You know, not everybody can jump in their car and, you know, drive a couple of miles from their home to vote. So we do need to make it easier for seniors, people who, you know, are in wheelchairs. I've come across a lot of them during this process, and I know that would make it a lot easier for them. One asked me, I'm going to vote for you, but I don't know how I'm going to get to the polls. And he was, you know, he was in a wheelchair. And I said, you know, maybe we can figure out how you can get there. You know, I could try to help you. But, you know, wouldn't it be much easier for him if he could do this online? I think it would.
What about expanding the mail ballot? Right now, there are some very specific categories of voters who are eligible to vote by mail. Would you open that up to all voters?
It would be nice. I think so. You know, I would love to vote by mail. And there's a lot of people, actually one of my neighbors who wanted to vote for me is going to be out of town during the entire election. So wouldn't that be nice if she could vote for me by mail? I mean, you know, and probably there's a way that she could have done that, but it was kind of like, I didn't know there was a special election. I didn't know you were running. And I'm going to be out of town. You know, she just got, she and her husband just got relocated, and she was going to check out the, yeah, you know, the space. And she said, I won't be back in time. So, you know.
Esther, a policy question?
Yes. Another question that I have for you is, as far as you discussed education and how you were providing school supplies, very admirable. Now, you were doing that 20 years ago, but now it seems like a lot more people have caught on and they're doing that.
Yes.
What else do you have in mind to provide Texans with quality education?
Well, we need to take care of our teachers. You know, we need smaller classroom sizes. So those are definitely at the top of my list. Teachers should work with dignity. They should retire with dignity. I mean, they are educating our most valuable resource, you know, the kids in our community. And, you know, personally, having gone through the public school system here, I feel like there was not a lot of encouragement to further my education. And yesterday I sat with a voter, and he went to the same high school I went to, and he told me that 1,000 kids enrolled in their freshman year, and at graduation it was only 300 kids. So what is going on, you know? And he didn't know. I mean, he said, you know, did they drop out? Did they move? He said he thought, you know, some got pregnant. So, you know, sadly and candidly, there's a lot of problems in the public school system. And I think at the state level, we can start there and make sure the funding is there for public school system. And then we can work on the problems in the independent school districts.
Yeah. In our voter's guide questionnaire, we asked for your response about mental health services. Tell me a little bit more about what you think needs to be done to ensure adequate, quality mental health services throughout Texas.
Wow, we definitely need more, and there needs to be more to reach out to people who need mental health, because it's really hard to diagnose. There's more people that suffer from mental health than we realize, and it needs to be accessible. I know one of my friends, she is the director of a clinic, and she says that in our culture specifically, and so most of this district, it's 75% Latino, they're very shy about asking for help when it comes to mental health. So, you know, I would love to tackle that problem and see what we could do to help.
Is it funding or is it a cultural change, do you think?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think definitely funding, and culturally, that's going to take a little more effort. You know, it really is.
Esther, would you like to ask the last question of the evening, please?
Yes. So if elected, is there a bill you have in mind that you would like to file if you could?
Wow, that's a really good question. Wow. Well, I would like to raise minimum wage. A lot of people in this district are not making enough money, and when I looked at the demographics, a lot of them aren't even working 12 months out of the year. So it says a lot, and I think we need to take care of people who don't have a lot of resources. I know personally in my own small business, I pay my employees $15 an hour, and I think that we need to work on raising minimum wage. It's been way too long.
What's the one thing, in summation, what's the one thing that you want voters in District 145 to know about you?
I'm passionate about District 145. I think it shows. Those who truly know me know that I've been there without expecting anything in return. My grandsons live there, and I want to make sure that they have a healthy, safe environment to live in, and that they have access to education and health care and all those things that all of our kids deserve. So yes, I think that my passion is stronger than anybody's in this race.
Christina Morales, candidate for Texas House District 145. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The election will be held on Tuesday, January 29th, and early voting by personal appearance is in progress right now. If you're not sure if you're registered to vote in Texas House District 145, please visit www.harrisvotes.com. Enter your name or your address, and you can get that sorted out easily. If you want to learn more about the candidates, we will be ready with our voters guide very shortly. We invite you to have a look at our interactive voters guide site, www.vote411.org. Just enter your address, your ballot will come up, and you'll see autobiographical information and the policy positions of all 8 candidates. You can compare candidates side by side and decide which candidate's views most closely align with yours. Or visit our website, www.lwvhouston.org. I'm Linda Cohn with the League of Women Voters, here with my league colleague, Esther No, this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Take good care, and we'll chat again soon.